Okay, I think we can finally do this Q&A. I think we're finally going to be able to do it. I don't think more news is going to break right now when I'm recording this. I think we're good. I think we can record a Q&A. So let's do it. Welcome to Q&A, the show where I take your questions from YouTube, Twitter, and everywhere else and answer them here on this show in video format. It's been a while since the last Q&A, so I just kind of want to jump into these questions, and we're going to start with a question from Wenzan JV, who says, how good is Nick Mullens? He's Nick Mullens, which means he's all right. He's okay. He's not like a franchise quarterback or anything like that. I know that there are people are passing around per 16 stats on Nick Mullens, but like, again, if Nick Mullens were actually good, he wouldn't be floating around on the Browns practice squad for the last 12 weeks. So no, he's not like the greatest quarterback in the world, but it's actually a pretty good third string quarterback, I would say, for the Browns, right? So I think that's the appropriate amount of good that Nick Mullens is. The next question comes from Benny in the booth, who says, do you think the Browns can still win even with this mess? Now, this question was asked before the game got moved, and most of these, I think all of these questions got asked before the game got moved. But yeah, I do think the Browns, look, as long as the Browns can trot out there some combination of Nick Chubb and Myles Garrett, I think they can still win the game. I wouldn't say they would be favored to win the game, but I would say they could still win the game because those are the two players that we have that separate us from other teams, right? Like those are the players that are above and beyond better than what other teams have to offer. And, you know, when you have those kind of players, you can win games that you ain't supposed to. It's not being a homer thing, right? Like I know some people like to call me a homer just because they know I'm a Browns fan, but I just think that really just indicates that they don't watch this channel enough because I take plenty of flack for being plenty critical of the Cleveland Browns. I mean, I've been critical of the offense all year. I've been critical of the defense in part times. So, you know, yeah, can the Browns win this game even throughout all this mess? Absolutely. The Ravens almost won a game in even worse circumstance last year against a better Steelers team than what the Raiders are. So why not the Browns? The next question comes from Dog24, who says, Q, is it just me or does Chubb look like he's not trusting his first reads anymore? The last two games against the Ravens, he starts and stops instead of just going where the O-line opens up for him and trying to find something that's not there. Thank you for all you do. Well, one, O-line didn't open up much versus the Ravens these first 2 weeks, right? Like that's one thing, right? The other thing that's going on with Nick Chubb, or at least from my perspective, is I don't think it's that he's not trusting his first read, but I do think he's pressing. I think he wants to make a big play. He knows that more of the load offensively is on him, and that pressure makes him press a little bit more often more than he should and makes him want to make bigger plays than he really should be going for at the time. And the other part of it is I'm starting to wonder if Nick Chubb's just hurt. Like, I know that it's nothing reported on the injury report, but he doesn't look the same. Now, I would love to be proven wrong this weekend, well, on Monday, but he just doesn't look the same right now. Like, he doesn't get the edges as well as he did in previous year. He just doesn't look the same. I don't think it's because he's older. I think there's something with him, you know, but I think it could just be a combination of the offensive line isn't blocking at the level that they have been in past years. And, you know, he's pressing, so he's just not playing as well. The next question comes from Anthony, who says, what do you think the Browns game plan will be going into this game? I think the Browns game plan is going to be going into this game, regardless of who plays, run the ball, right? Because unless you lose both D'Ernest Johnson and Nick Chubb on top of everybody else you lost, you got a better you have a better running back room than most teams, right? So they're just going to run the ball, right? You're down to third string quarterback potentially, not great wide receivers. You're just going to want to make this be a running back oriented game. The next question comes from Samuel Byers, who says, who do you think will win the rush battle between Nick Chubb or Josh Jacobs? I could see it going either way with our hurt O-line. I honestly would give the edge from a analyst standpoint to Josh Jacobs, because Malik McDowell is a huge part of the Browns' run defense, and he might not play, and so is Jadeveon Clowney. And Nick Chubb is going without two of his starting offensive linemen potentially. So I would give the edge in this battle to Josh Jacobs, because he is playing against he could potentially play against a significantly softer hand than what Nick Chubb would be, right? Because Nick Chubb would be going up against the Raiders starters. Josh Jacobs might not be going up against the Raiders starters. And on top of that, Nick Chubb might not be playing with the Browns starters, right? So that might happen. Next question comes from Sam Franklin, who says, the hits keep coming. Do they have enough active bodies to fill the roster at this point? Yeah, they'll have enough. Look, they changed the rules to make it easier for people to get off this list if they're vaccinated, and everybody on the team that's tested positive so far just happens to be vaccinated, so that's good news. They moved the game to Monday. Again, things should be looking up as long as this outbreak has been contained a little bit, right? Like, as long as we don't get, fingers crossed, let's hope Saturday and Sunday are very boring days. We find out nobody else. Well, we're going to find out some people were added to this list tomorrow, right? But as long as we go through Sunday and nobody new is added to the list on Sunday, we might be all right. The next question comes from Beep Beep out of the way, who says, if you could get two players back for this game, who would you pick? Wyatt Teller and Jedrick Wills, right? Maybe you can honorable mention Jadeveon Clowney in there, but defensively, you still got your centerpiece of Myles Garrett, so I feel like you could do something there. You still got Denzel Ward, so I feel like there's something you can manufacture there. On the other side of the ball, without Wyatt Teller and Jedrick Wills, I worry about if you could manufacture anything, right? It's already going to be difficult to manufacture anything through the air. And then on the ground without those two guys, it's going to be real tough. So I would want those two players back more than anybody, because, again, the Browns' ability to manufacture offense without a healthy offensive line, putrid. The Browns' ability to manufacture defensive plays without Jadeveon Clowney, still there, because you just got your best playmaker active, and that's Myles Garrett. So that's why I would go in that direction. Next question comes from Nash, who says, how long can this defense stay elite and keep us in the playoff race? We look like the number one defense and the 32nd offense. Something must change. You know what's interesting about this team, or about this Browns team, is last year we felt like the exact opposite of this team, but I do feel like, me personally at least, I had a lot more confidence in this defense. And I was wondering, like, why was I a lot more confident this defense could make a play when they need to than I am about this offense this year? And then it hit me. No matter how much the defense disappoints you, you have confidence in this defense because this defense has a franchise player, right? Myles Garrett, he's the franchise player. So even if the defense is struggling, you have a guy who can get you a third down when you need it, right? Offensively, this year, what I'm realizing is we might have a lot of really good players on offense. We don't have a single franchise player, or at least somebody who's emerged to that franchise level. Nobody who, when it's 3rd and 10 and your back's against the wall, that's going to reliably be able to be leaned on to make plays. We thought it was Baker because Baker did that last year, right? He's not doing that this year. We thought it was Nick Chubb because Nick Chubb seems like somebody who could do that, but when we've leaned on him to do those things, and he hasn't really come through this year as much as you would want him to. And I think that's the big difference between how we look at this defense from last year, where it was disappointing, but it wasn't like it was holding the team back, and how we look at this offense, where it is completely an anchor, a burden that this team is dealing with. And I think that's the difference, right? That's the difference between having a franchise player on one side of the ball and not having a franchise player on the other side of the ball. And the fact of the matter is, right now, nobody has emerged as a franchise level player on that offense. And that means when you need a play, you don't really know who to lean on. And that makes things very, very difficult for this offense and very difficult for this football team. Now, do I think this defense is going to be able to maintain how high of a level of play they're going to be playing at? No, they're going to eventually, at some point during this portion of the season, they're going to need run support, right? They're going to need the offense to boot up and do something, right? I don't think you're going to beat the Packers with just defense alone. You could beat the Steelers with just defense alone, but you're probably not going to beat the Bengals with defense alone, right? So if you want to make the playoffs, the offense has to come back online at some point. But the defense right now, I think they've done more than they're due. And since they do have Myles Garrett, even if their play slips a little bit, I feel confident in their ability to make a play to keep the team in the game. Offensively, they got to play better than this. That's just borderline. The next question comes from Levi, who says, what's your take on fans booing their own team? I see it as toxic, and it only drops the morale of players. We should always root for our guys to succeed, not kick them when they're down. This is one of those things that's difficult, right? Because you can't finger wag at people at the stadium and put on the Titantron, don't boo, and expect them not to boo. They're probably going to boo that announcement, right? Booing is a visceral reaction of dissatisfaction, right? When you're dissatisfied with what you see and what is meant to entertain you, people boo. That's just kind of a way about it. Now, we could go about whether it's nice or whether it's something that you should do, if it's proper etiquette. I think that kind of behavior, booing your own team, is going to be on its way out in the next 20 years. I don't think this is going to be something that continues because, again, it's kind of counterproductive and silly to boo your own team, and really only serves to itch that small itch there to boo the team because you're mad. But it really doesn't do anything good. Nothing good has ever happened because they've booed their own team. Only thing that ever happens when you boo your own team is that you look kind of foolish because they score a touchdown next and now you're cheering. So it's one of those things. It's yeah, I wish people wouldn't do that, but I get why they do it. And, it's just one of those things that, it's probably going to die out the next 20 years or so, because I do think more people are just starting to think that that's a little tacky to boo the team. But, I don't blame people for doing it. I mean, I be feeling like booing this offense when I see them out there, right? It has to reach a certain level. And that's also another layer to this, right? There are certain levels of bad football that just deserve to be booed also. That's part of it. And the Browns offense has, the last 4 weeks at least, they've deserved to be booed. Again, should they do it? No, but they've been playing that bad that they deserve to be booed. And, again, football is entertainment. And when you're greatly dissatisfied with the entertainment you are in a entertainment style that asks you as an audience member to be a part of the game, you're going to boo. You're going to boo. It's just going to happen, right? This isn't the movie theater or the theater where you're not asked to be a part of it. You're asked to be quiet. It's sports, and when you see something that you just can't justify and you want it off your screen, people gonna boo. Again, I don't think people should do it, but I can't sit here and finger wag at people who do, because I'm gonna be honest with you. Sometimes football do that to you. The next question comes from Charlie Cummings, who says, could you see Dearness at wide receiver with Fulton? And what is my opinion of Urban Meyer being fired, do you think he will ever coach in the ranks again? And will Stefanski call the offensive plays? Sorry, too many questions. I'm going to focus on the first two. De'Arnaz at wide receiver with Felton. I'm over the whole let's put running backs at wide receivers thing. This is just simplify. Let's no more of this. Simplify. Have a player play one position. They do a good job of this on the defense, right? Where they put JOK in at one position, let him perfect that. Once he perfected that, they expanded. Just let Demetric learn how to run the ball before we get him out there running routes. Okay, let him, because he's doing too much right now. Urban Meyer being fired, I mean, to be honest with you, this is longer than I thought Urban Meyer would last in the NFL. I've always felt like from watching him at Ohio State, in Florida, this is not a dude who's built for the NFL. When you talk about quitting college football and retiring from college football because the stresses at the University of Florida were too much, you're not going to last in the NFL, man. Like, yeah, it's stressful at the University of Florida because you can't really lose a game. But in the NFL, the stresses are tenfold more than that, because not only are you dealing with just your team, you're dealing with people who do this for a living. You're dealing with professional athletes. You're dealing with people with their livelihoods on the line, like legitimate livelihoods on the line. Like, there is real stakes in professional football for people's families that aren't there in college football the way they are in the NFL. And when you can't handle the stresses of college football, that just tells me that you're not really going to be able to handle the stresses of the NFL. I mean, look at every coach who struggled to handle the stresses of college football and tell me how they've turned out in the NFL. And you will find nobody who's been that successful in the NFL, right? Bobby Petrino, main example. Couldn't handle the stresses at some universities, can't handle the NFL. Bounced up underneath a week. Like, the NFL is such a more stressful beast than college football. And there's no disrespect to people who love college football or prefer college football, but that game does not have all the things attached to it that the NFL does, right? The NFL, you are not in charge of the football team or football operations. You are in charge of one part of football operations. You ain't recruiting. You ain't picking who's on the team. Sometimes you ain't even picking your other coaches. You know what I mean? Like, these things aren't up to you like they are in college football. So there's less stress there because you can control your environment in a way that you just cannot in the NFL. And again, yelling at college kids and telling college kids what to do as a grown man, that's one thing. But when you're yelling at other grown professionals like college kids, and that's kind of how Urban's get down has always been, I just never felt like that will work. I've always felt like, Urban Meyer is a great college coach. He has his problems, obviously, but, his style of coaching, his rah-rah style of like motivating guys and his gimmicky way of like doing helmet stripes and trying to get people motivated, that stuff is cool in college, but it's stuff that people are going to get real tired of in the NFL. And that's what happened with him, and honestly, he probably should have been out sooner than this, right? Because the signs were there from the very start with Urban Meyer in the NFL, and that thing not working, right? Maybe people got enthralled with his success, and, maybe they thought he was some kind of offensive genius, even though, people who watch a lot of Ohio State football will greatly contend with that ideal that Urban Meyer is some kind of offensive genius, because he has done very frustrating things as the head coach of the not the Cleveland Browns, of the Ohio State Buckeyes. But that's it for this week's Q&A. Again, guys, thank you guys for asking these questions. Have a good day and have a great night.